Hello! Welcome to the 15th episode of Dulcius Ex Asperis, where I bring you cozy news and crafty politics. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how I screen print shirts at home. Okay, it's not real screen printing. Screen printing would be a great skill to learn if I wanted to make a bunch of shirts with the same design, but I always get these designs in my head I want to make just one of. I can't take credit for this technique. I think I read about it online somewhere. Let's talk about the good news first, shall we? The Supreme Court declined a case that could have changed federal recognition for same-sex marriage. Context is important here. In 2022, the Supreme Court reversed the constitutional right to abortion and overturned Roe v. Wade. In that decision, Justice Clarence Thomas specifically said the court should reconsider all of its substantive due process precedents. That's judge speak for cases decided with similar logic. And that included landmark decisions on things like same-sex marriage and medical care for transgender people. This cute story about a guy working at the local dump warmed my heart. I mean, yes, he finds meaning in a job that doesn't get a lot of respect. But he also uses his unique position to build community and push recycling efforts, like the social media videos he makes to advertise usable items that are dropped off to be thrown away, but someone might want. I've started seeing everything I buy that way. Like it's not just a thing I use, it will be my responsibility to get rid of it later. And do I need that new kitchen tool enough to justify it taking up space in a dump later, or generating air pollution by getting burned? Or can I pay the extra money for a thing that can get composted or recycled? It's why I buy compostable sponges and toothbrushes now. Stories like this are a good reminder to me that you don't need to be powerful to be influential. We can all find a way to influence things for the better, even if you're the manager of the local dump. To make these stencils, I took freezer paper and glued it to cardstock using stencil glue. That's important. You want a weak adhesive. I used a laser cutter to cut the stencil out without cutting through the cardstock. A Cricut machine will work just as well. Or, if you have the patience, you can cut out the stencil using an X-Acto knife. More good news from October, but still relevant, I promise. The Defense Department changed the rules for the Pentagon Press Corps. Reporters are only allowed to publish what the Defense Department says they can publish, even if the information isn't classified. Basically, any news organization reporting from the Pentagon Press Corps is parroting what the Defense Department wants them to say. It's notable that most news organizations rejected this deal. It would be easy enough to stay and repeat the Defense Department's propaganda to nail those exclusive stories and get ad revenue. But both Fox News and CNN walked away. Imagine Fox News and CNN agreeing on anything that big. Even Newsmax, not exactly known for unbiased coverage, refused the new rules. Probably good to keep the changes in mind next time you read an article about Defense Department policy. Was that article written by a news organization committed to telling the truth? Here I'm taking the little bits inside the letters off of the stencil. It's finicky work, but I like the results. Unlike a typical stencil, you can use images or fonts with holes. Everything gets ironed on. You've probably heard of the No Kings slogan. I like this version of it from the October No Kings protest in D.C. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. Obviously, we don't have literal kings yet. Trump is trying. But we do have people who get outsized influence and abuse their power. What's that quote about power corrupting? Apparently, Elon Musk's Grok chatbot was instructed to say that Elon Musk is the best at everything? People discovered this by asking Grok who is best at things you probably don't want to be best at. It's not just social media that's warped because of billionaires' influence. Unfortunately, it's our elections, too. 15 years ago, the Citizens United decision changed how corporations and unions can influence federal elections. Now, corporations and unions can spend their money to directly advocate for or against a candidate. Spending has risen steadily since. This has created well-funded so-called super PACs with untraceable donors. That means I'm extra skeptical of any pro-business campaign ads. What's good for business can be good for our communities, but it isn't always. Businesses, especially publicly traded companies with shareholders, often pursue short-term incentives to boost next quarter's earnings. Data centers needed for AI tools like Grok are a good illustration of the perils of allocating resources based on short-term profit incentives. But we need to get to the biggest story of the past couple months, and I apologize in advance. It's about Trump and the Epstein files, and before you click away, I'm not digging into the gross details. I think it's important to understand how we got to the point where Trump voted to release the Epstein files, because it's not that Trump has suddenly embraced transparency and accountability. Despite his campaign promises, Trump spent months pressuring the Republican Party trying to keep these files secret. When it became clear his party was going to vote against him and release the files anyway, he decided to vote for the bill so he could claim that he helped. His claim that he helped is all smoke and mirrors. Thousands of emails were released, and I expect many, many more news stories on them. But already we have some important takeaways, including how Trump plans to spin doing this thing that he did not want to do. Following another common theme of his administration, he plans to punish the Democrats by calling out political figures on the left who are in the Epstein files. Not that reporters are asking little old me, but for the record, anyone who helped Epstein hurt children should be held accountable, regardless of their party affiliation. Other big takeaways from the Epstein files? Letters from Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell strongly imply that Trump knew what Epstein was up to. Epstein said of Trump he knew about the girls and asked Ghislaine to stop. Oops, forgot to put in that plastic liner. It was only the first coat, so I think I'll be okay. Because Trump has never acknowledged this, Epstein believed he had some leverage over him. In case you're thinking I should give the administration some credit for releasing the Epstein files and calling out some guilty parties, wait, there's more. Remember Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner in crime? In August, while the administration was still fighting to keep the Epstein files private, Maxwell was moved to a less restrictive prison after meeting with Department of Justice officials. The DOJ has not explained why Maxwell was granted this privilege. This slogan is another one I heard in videos of the DC protests. I like it because it highlights a lot of what I've seen over the past few years. Out-organize, because political activism isn't just being loud on social media and standing firm in your real-world conversations, though both of those things are important. The civil rights movement didn't win victories overnight. There were a lot of disappointments along the way. They had to build connections with each other, to organize, so their movements were durable. Originally, I imagined I was just going to do a frog in profile, but then I found this graphic of a frog with a little resist sign, and once the frog had detail, now the unicorn needed some detail too, and the T-Rex. My project snowballed a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm afraid of painting these details on. Off camera, I put several more coats on these letters. These fabric paints are all the same brand, but they vary a lot in opacity. Here's a sample I did testing the stencil method and how many coats of paint it took to cover up the dark brown color of this shirt. The outvote part of this slogan is obvious. That's the best way to affect change, as someone's bumper sticker says. If voting didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to stop you. Progressive causes face an uphill battle at the ballot box because of how effective the Republicans have been at redistricting. But that's no reason to give up. This white screen printing paint was way better than any of my fabric paints for these designs. It worked in one coat. This design was inspired by the whimsical animal costumes I've seen in pictures of the No Kings protest. Unicorns, frogs, and even a few T-Rexes. Here I'm adding details to all the animals, like the start of the eyes for the frog and the colors on the unicorn's horn and tail. This tiny little resist sign is why I wanted to use this frog graphic. And it demonstrates why I love this technique so much. I'm going to iron the resist stencil on top of the white paint that's already dried. You can do overlapping designs using this freezer paper stencil method. Now we need to pull out the tiny inside parts of those letters in the resist sign and iron those into place. Tweezers and an X-Acto knife are a big help here. With all those little bits in place, we can paint in the resist sign. To put the details on this frog face, steady hands now, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. I waited until the paint was dry to pull the stencil off this time. Aren't you proud of me? The last part of this slogan might be my favorite part. Outlast. Sometimes you don't win that election, or get that law passed, or get the school board to protect queer youth, or convince that corporation to stop doing the bad thing. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you lose big. And in those moments, you have to hold on to a little seed of hope. I watched the Jane Goodall Famous Last Words episode on Netflix. Highly recommend. I didn't appreciate her enough when she was alive. So we organize, we vote, and if those fail, we outlast. We hold on to the truth and we repeat it to whomever will listen as often as we need to. The first suffragettes fought for a woman's right to vote and never got to vote themselves. Generations of abolitionists fought to end slavery before change happened. These movements were successful because they looked at change as a generational project. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see change happen faster. Maybe it will. Either way, I'm going to keep this slogan in my head. Out-organize, out-vote, outlast. The very last step in this project is to heat set the paint. You can use an iron. I'm using a shirt between the iron and the paint just to avoid getting gunk on my iron. As a nice bonus, it makes the final reveal more dramatic. Also, remember to take out that plastic liner you put in while you were painting. And here's our final product. Pretty happy with how it turned out. The back design is a little off kilter, but that'll be our little secret. Until next time, take care of each other.